LeBron James' net worth has hit $1 billion, joining Michael Jordan as the only NBA players to ever achieve that level of wealth, which is amazing when you consider that the NFL is the most popular sport in America, and its two richest players combined are currently worth less than half of one LeBron James. But the wildest thing about NBA legends like MJ and LeBron James becoming billionaires isn't that they got there, it's that they certainly won't be alone for long, and the next generation of NBA billionaires won't even have to be legends to do it. But first, put on your Hanes, eat your Wheaties, lace up your Nikes, and grab that Gatorade, because if we're going to talk about NBA billionaires, we're going to have to start with the first one, Michael Jordan. And over the course of his 15 years in the league, Michael Jordan crafted a career that redefined excellence and winning at the highest levels. And sponsors tend to like that kind of thing. And in exchange for borrowing his shine to sell everything from shoes to underwear, they made the guy super rich. How rich? Well, to this point, the biggest moneymaker in league history was Magic Johnson, but even he wouldn't want to play big bank take little bank with MJ. In fact, Jordan was still earning $90 million a year a full decade after he retired, but his earnings didn't become a billionaire until 2014. And though he'd make a staggering amount from sponsorships and NBA earnings, that's not how he got the billionaire bag. The real key to Jordan's status was that year, he bought all but 10% of the Charlotte Hornets. And when the value of the team went up, boom, brand new billionaire. A basically unimaginable feat for a basketball player, but one that was soon outpaced by a kid from Akron. Because it took the modern NBA 46 years to create its first player billionaire, but it only took another 8 years to make it second. And it may be debatable as to who's the better player between Michael Jordan and LeBron James, but when it comes to the pair as businessmen, that debate is closed. Michael Jordan didn't become a billionaire until a decade into his retirement, but LeBron James became one 2 decades into his career as an active player, which is a far cry from being raised by a teenage mom who moved place to place in Ohio. But all that changed when LeBron James found basketball, and soon he became the most hyped high school basketball player prospect of all time. And even at the age of 18, LeBron started to show the difference between him and the billionaire ballers before him. Because instead of signing with Reebok and Adidas, LeBron chose what he saw as a better long-term partnership and inked his first deal with Nike. And I guess you could say that worked out. I mean, in 2015, Nike re-upped with LeBron and signed him to a lifetime agreement that's worth 8 figures annually. Now add that to deals with brands like AT&T, Pepsi, and Walmart, and all that adds up to LeBron being the second highest earning athlete in the world, which is how LeBron James became a billionaire, just like Mike.
Sometimes I dream that he is me. I just want to be like Mike.
But that's where the similarities end, because the real key to James's fortune is that he's been more than just a pitchman. And if you let Forbes tell it, James has long structured deals to give him equity in brands he partners with, and giving him a cut of the upside instead of a quick paycheck. What this means in practice is that partnering with LeBron James is less like having an employee and more like having a merger. Basically, LeBron James is a billionaire because while both he and Michael Jordan will do a Space Jam, LeBron James will do it and also produce the movie. But LeBron James and Michael Jordan aren't out here thriving alone, y'all. The NBA has come a long way from so-called firemen and plumbers, and now its players are basically walking multinational corporations. And according to The Athletic, starting with this rookie class, the NBA could start minting 1 or more billionaires every single year. And not only that, but any player who enters the league from this point on could end up making more than $1 billion in just NBA contracts alone. And that excludes all the money NBA players make from things like shoe deals or investments off the court. This is purely from NBA revenue alone. And in the 21 season, the NBA shelled out nearly $9 billion in basketball-related income, and that number is only gonna go up. And that's because the NBA's earnings are set to explode from things like TV and streaming, sports gambling, team expansion, and believe it or not, jersey patches. There'll be so much money sloshing around that the billionaire bag won't be reserved for top 15 players in the league. All a rookie will have to do to get there is sign each scheduled max extension or contract as they're offered. That's it. To make $1 billion in NBA contracts alone, a player will just need to be an all-star early on and play into their late 30s, not a legend like Michael Jordan or LeBron James. Why? Because under the NBA's collective bargaining agreement, player compensation is directly tied to revenue, and they are guaranteed 49% of all those funds. So line go up, bag get bigger. and that split has led to a new generation of wealth across the sport. In 2015, 9 players made $20 million or more, with Kobe Bryant making the most at 25. But that number is tiny when compared to the 10 players who are already set to make more than $50 million in 2025. To give you an idea of the kind of money that we're talking about here, if you added the payrolls of the Hawks, the Suns, the Nuggets, the Bucks, and the 76ers in 2014 together, it still wouldn't equal the nearly $60 million that Steph Curry will earn in 2025. And if you think that kind of money is crazy, the day that a player will earn more than $100 million in a season will be here before you know it. In the NBA, there used to be a saying, you could take care of yourself after the first contract and your family after the second, but you can take care of 3 generations on your third. But now, players only need 2 contracts for their wealth to go 3 generations deep, and this signals a dramatic change for the NBA. But whether or not this is a net positive or negative is still an open question, because there is a darker side to the astonishing amounts of money and player empowerment that comes with it. And we're already seeing these nosebleed numbers change the power dynamics between players and governors throughout the league. Already, players like Ben Simmons and Kyrie Irving have signaled that power struggles between team and all-star are only going to flare up more often, not less. And the subject of player empowerment becomes murkier depending on which players you're looking at. Because the truth about player empowerment is that while some players have it, most players don't. Player empowerment only really applies to elite players, and when they use that power, it's often over the non-elites. For instance, if you're Anthony Davis forcing your way out of New Orleans for the Lakers, that's a high point in player empowerment. But that move hits a lot different if you're Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, or Josh Hart. It's sometimes hard to see where the line between player empowerment and player entitlement begins and ends. More complicating still is, even though it's easy to call superstars divas for acting out, there's actually a reason why they exert their will in these spots, and that's because in a salary cap league, it is literally impossible to fairly compensate a star NBA player. If you're familiar with the idea that in a salary gig, the more you work, the less you make, then it's like that for star ballers on steroids. So I don't begrudge players for making their billions and actually wish them billions and billions more to come. But it's starting to affect the product on the court. And the players and the governors can't act like they're the only parties that matter. They are only stewards of the game that belongs to the fans as much as it does them. And these windfall profits don't come from the air, but from the wallet and collective mindshare of the basketball world. And if they don't recognize that, then their biggest problem won't be fans not seeing any players when their teams play, but players not seeing any fans when they do. The players need to recognize that they can be empowered without being overpowered, and the governors need to recognize that the old days are gone for good. Players are business partners to be negotiated with, not commodities for lease or sale, and when you give the governors too much control, it leads to the lack of parity and player movement that occurred in the early days of the NBA. But that does not mean that players have to overcorrect. They have a responsibility to get as big of a bag as quickly as possible, but they also have a responsibility to protect the logo while they do it. And it's the only debt that they owe to players who came before them, and they pay that debt by protecting the game for the players who are still to come. Basically, they should treat it like Halloween. You can take all the candy that you want, but leave the bag behind for the next kid. Thanks for watching Hoops and Dreams. If you dig the vibe, hit the subscribe to join the tribe. Peace.